Hey guys, Evil Otto Jr. here, and today we're talking Trendmasters, the big kind. That's right, right here we've got four functioning 10-inch scaled Trendmasters, released between 1994 and 1995. I have the regular green color scheme Godzilla, the MechaGodzilla, the King Ghidorah, and the Spacegodzilla. And we're going to talk a little bit about each of these figures in turn. Like I said, they are all functional. These toys actually had a motion sensor with them, and that's how they're activated. The thing is that it's actually kind of a misconception on the box that it says it's a motion sensor. It's actually more of a light sensor. You see, if I wave my hand in front of Godzilla, I mean, this thing's like 20 years old and it doesn't work as well anymore, but you shine a flashlight in front of it, and then suddenly remove the light, and now hold on a sec, and suddenly Godzilla is roaring again. So all of these I've obtained in the past couple of months, currently January 2016, and I've managed to find these all for very decent prices on eBay. Sometimes you see these things, especially if any of it's new in box, sometimes you see these things shoot into like the $200 or even $300 range, which is a bit ridiculous, but I think these all cost me between 10 and 20 bucks a piece. And they're all in pretty decent condition. The King Ghidorah was actually restored. I will cut in a few pictures about that when I talk about it more. But we're going to go through each of these one by one and talk about what I like about them, what I dislike about them, and just a bit about each one. I think it's important to know that two of these figures, the Godzilla and the Spacegodzilla, I had when I was a little kid, back when I was about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8. I had both of these two. I never had the MechaGodzilla or the King Ghidorah, though I do actually know a kid who had the Ghidorah, though he broke off the middle head. But these two toys are pretty much exactly as I remember them from when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I had the green Godzilla and not the supercharged Godzilla as well, so that should hold over from memory. But the Spacegodzilla, other than the roar, is exactly how I remember that, and I'll get to that when I talk about him a little bit later. So first off, we have the Godzilla. Now, unlike all the other reviews, I'm going to start this with the roar. As you can see, this one is completely functional, and the figure is, I don't have a ruler with me, unfortunately, or I would measure it, but it is, they say it's 10-inch scale. These figures are all actually just over 9 inches tall. Here they are compared to a little easier to find 4-inch Godzilla, also from Trendmasters, and as you can see, there is a noticeable size increase. So what we have is, I am not a stickler for points of articulation, considering that I don't really play with any of these toys. They're just on display. But this Godzilla has 6 points. The legs, both arms, the tail, and the head. Now, the head only rotates about, I don't know, maybe 20 degrees in either direction. It's the common theory behind that is so that you don't damage the electronics inside. I have actually had this thing disassembled before, and the the light bulb inside the head is free floating. If you could turn this head 360 degrees, it wouldn't damage the light bulb. It's seriously just a halogen bulb on 2 wires that is wrapped in a strip of masking tape so it will stand up straight in the head. Not particularly elegant, but it works. And it's not really that big a deal because, honestly, why would you need to turn the head 360 degrees anyway? It seems a little extraneous. But he has this switch in the back, right over his right hip, and yeah, up is on, down is off, and we're gonna switch him to on, just because the batteries in these figures do not die over if you leave them on for extended periods of time. They only drain when the lights and sound are activated. So it's pretty cool when you have them on display. They can just you can just point a flashlight at them and make them roar whenever you want. The paint job is pretty good. There's a nice little bit of airbrushing on the spines there, and it does go all the way down the tail. His claws and teeth are painted a bone yellow sort of thing, and you can even see there's some good sculpting. I don't know if it'll show up on camera. It will not, but the roof of the mouth and the tongue are also sculpted, and they're made in a clear red so the light can shine through. Now, it's important to note that the whole head is actually made out of the clear plastic, and so if you get it, the head is actually painted to match the rest of the body, and it does so very well. But the issue with this is that if you get scratches in the paint on the head, the light will show through. I don't know if you can pick any of that up. Yeah, you can see it sort of blinking through his cheek there. So this Godzilla kind of has the fang thing going on. It almost looks like he has buck teeth. But other than that, the sculpt is very likable. It is the 10-inch Trendmasters especially always seem to have kind of this He-Man-esque giant muscle build thing going on, which I do not mind, but a lot of other people have a huge problem with. But I think for the purposes of this figure, it works pretty well. Yeah, these weren't meant to be like collector's pieces like the SH Monster Arts or anything like that. These were meant to be toys for children, and they're reasonably durable. Most of it is hollow vinyl, and they will stand up to most abuse that a child could put it through. So that is the Godzilla. Okay, so here we have the MechaGodzilla. This again stands just over 9 inches tall, and as you can see, it is a fairly faithful representation of the Heisei era MechaGodzilla. For a Trendmasters figure, this particular figure has a crap ton of points of articulation. I think it actually has 9. It's got the mouth actually opens and closes, which is a really nice touch. The head moves a little bit to either side. It's the same issue as the Godzilla, where it doesn't turn more than about 20 degrees, but again, you don't really need it to. Then you have the wrists actually rotate. The arms are on both a rotating joint and a in and out joint, both of them. And then the legs move. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Most of it is painted in, the chrome silver, though the feet and hands are just colored, gray. They're not painted with the same stuff, but they're made out of a more rubbery vinyl material as opposed to the hard plastic that most of this is. The only problem sculpt-wise I have with this is that the hands on this figure are absolutely tiny. They're very, very small compared to the hand sizes of just about everything else, including some of the 4-inch figures. Here is a 4-inch Anguirus figure. As you can see, it is not very tall, and yet its hands are actually bigger than the hands of the MechaGodzilla. Other than that, that is the only complaint. That is the only complaint I have about this figure sculpt-wise. Otherwise, it is very faithful to the movie. It is the brightest and one of the loudest of the 4 figures that I have. It's very bright. The eyes glow a bright yellow, and the mouth and the mouth glows red. I don't know if you can see the colors on camera, but as you can see, scratches in the paint do shine through on the head. But for a 20-year-old figure, this thing is in fantastic shape. And this is definitely one of the cooler ones. Another thing that I'd like to add about this is that they actually sculpted the sound vents where actual vents are on the real MechaGodzilla. Why they're on his crotch in either incarnation, I have no idea, but I guess it's best not to ask those sort of questions, now is it? Okay, so this is the 10-inch scale King Ghidorah, and actually I'm going to go ahead and compare it to the 4-inch King Ghidorah. Again, huge size difference. This, just like the others, stands just over 9 inches tall, and this particular one, when I purchased it, it was in really bad condition. I'll cut in some pictures right now. It was, essentially corroding and covered with some sort of sticky goo, which I believe at one point may have been orange juice. It was really bad, and I knew it was, but I figured I could restore it without too much difficulty. And as it turned out, it wasn't too bad. I managed to use some sticky tack. It's just blue tack like you would find, except not blue, and cover up the mouth and some of the eyes. Cover up all 3 mouths and these 2 eyes, and just paint the whole thing with spray paint that I managed to find that was exactly the same color. Like this is the same color it would have been before it was restored. So that's pretty cool. The other eyes I did just repaint. I figured since only the middle head has any light in it, and for some reason this figure, I guess just because of the damage it's gone through, is not as bright or loud as the other ones. But it could also have something to do with the fact that unlike the other 3, which I forgot to mention take AA batteries, this one actually takes AAAs. It takes 2 AAAs, and partially that's because of the wings. The wings actually have a mechanism to them that if you flap one, the other flaps, and that actually leads to some... That's actually pretty cool. The only problem is you can only really do that with the right wing. If you do it with the left wing, it kind of jams up like this. But all 3 heads rotate, including the one in the middle, and the one in the middle has a full range of rotation, so it moves a little better than the heads of the other 3 figures. You've got the 3 heads, or what, technically the necks, and then the both legs and the tail for points of articulation there. Oh, and the wings, duh. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 points of articulation. And this is a really nice sculpt. This is pretty true to the Heisei era King Ghidorah, and I'm pretty happy with it. There is, of course, the the hole for the motion sensor and for the speaker, but that's really not a problem when you get that awesome roaring feature. I'm willing to put up with a couple of holes in the plastic for that. Okay, so this is the Trendmasters 10-inch Spacegodzilla. This is my favorite figure of the bunch. Spacegodzilla has always been one of my favorite kaiju, just because it was a really big part of the Trendmasters line, specifically the Godzilla Wars line, where they introduced Spacegodzilla and a couple of other monsters. Here it is compared to a 4-inch scale Spacegodzilla. Absolutely gigantic to compare the two. Just like the others, it stands 9 inches tall. I'd say it stands 9 inches tall at the head. Maybe if you add the shoulder crystals, it hits an actual 10 inches. Oh, shut up. But actually, because he is stooped, he oh, you shut up too. Because he is stooped, he actually, even at the tip of the shoulder crystals, doesn't end up being that much taller. Damn it! Are you serious? Okay. Now that we have had a full-on Destroy All Monsters battle in here, so this figure of the ones that I have is in the best condition. I mean, there's not even dust on this thing. But there are a good number of points of articulation on this. Both arms rotate this way and at the crystal. Then the head moves. Yeah. And the head actually moves even less than the other ones. The legs move. And the tail moves in 2 sections. The tail is really, really long. I mean, you can see just how long this thing is. It's about 14 inches long, like the whole figure. So it's definitely an impressive display piece. Now the paint job is the standard Trendmasters Spacegodzilla paint job, where it's all rainbowy on the chest as opposed to red, with blue, with a dark blue transforming into a sky blue and then to a white on the crystals, and also the toe claws. Then you've got the white spikes on the back and going all the way down the tail. And as the tail, at the tail they tend to get a little more blue. But there's actually some nice airbrushing here. A lot of people do not like the way the Trendmasters Spacegodzilla was painted, but I think that it's very interesting. I think it's a little more visually striking even than the one from the movie. Just brighter colors, more contrast. It looks, I don't know, more alien than Godzilla does. Now, of course, on this one, the teeth are actually separate. They're actually molded to gums that are glued into the jaw, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then it's got a sculpted roof of the mouth and tongue. And the tongue is actually translucent white plastic that is just painted over with a pink. As far as the sculpt goes, this is probably the most film accurate of all of the sculpts you see here. Yeah, there's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to just how this is sculpted. The little nubs around the kneecaps, and even the molding all the way down the tail, and the little crystal spikes there. But yeah, of these, this has to be my favorite. It's now, I had one of these when I was a kid, as I said earlier. And what was interesting to note, and you probably noticed it when you heard him roar earlier, is that he has, instead of Spacegodzilla's roar from the movies, he has a sort of eagle roar. And that strikes me as interesting because I remember the one that I had as a kid actually had King Ghidorah's roar. And the one other review of this figure that I have seen on YouTube, his has a King Ghidorah roar. So that makes me wonder a little bit about what Trendmasters' process of putting sound cards in was. I know they didn't have the licensing for a lot of the sounds they wanted to use. Plus, I mean, Spacegodzilla was a brand new monster when this came out in 1994. As a matter of fact, I think this toy came out in America just after the movie came out in Japan. But yeah, Godzilla vs. Spacegodzilla came out in December of 1994. The one issue, or there are a couple of issues on the part, or on some of the parts that have actually held over. The one that I had when I was a kid actually has the same issue with these two spikes on the back side are actually not glued on very well, and they come off a bit. I actually need to sit down and super glue those back together. And the tusks on the side and the crest can actually break off really easily. I was very lucky to find one that had not already happened. A lot of the ones you find on eBay that you see secondhand are pretty busted up in that regard. So that is about it for the Trendmasters 10-inch Spacegodzilla. Alright guys, that about wraps up my review of these 10-inch Trendmasters Godzillas. If I get any more, I will definitely add to this review. And there are plenty more Godzilla reviews on the way. As you can see, we have a lot to cover.